Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com with the latest top science from the United Kingdom. The BBC reports that Prince Charles is calling for swift action on climate change.
Billions of people around the world are waiting and longing for concerted action to right the balance of this planet that we have so rashly disrupted. Millions of younger employees of countless companies and corporations are desperate for action, not more words.
Certainly the scene behind him with all the green trees and green grass looks pretty desperate. In 2009, Prince Charles said that we only had 100 months left to act on climate. The Prince of Wales is to issue a warning that the world only has 100 months to act before the damage caused by global warming becomes irreversible. The climate's pretty much the same, but Prince Charles does look 11 years older now. This is a picture I took of Prince Charles 50 years ago at the Queen's birthday celebration in London. And this is the Queen Mother sitting right here. London looked about the same 50 years ago, other than the fact that people weren't wearing masks, but Prince Charles does look about 50 years older now. And in 1993, Prince Charles said that we needed immediate action to stop global warming. November 9th, 1993, Prince Charles urged Saudi and British oil merchants Monday to address the threat of global warming at once. This is an issue which we have to address now, not in 10 or 20 years' time, he said. And he made that speech only 4 years after the United Nations said that we only had until the year 2000 to stop global warming. June 30th, 1989. Grim forecast. A senior environmental official at the United Nations, Noel Brown, says entire nations could be wiped off the face of the earth by rising sea levels if global warming is not reversed by the year 2000. Coastal flooding and crop failures could create an exodus of eco-refugees, threatening political chaos, said Brown, director of the New York office of the UN Environment Program. He said governments have a 10-year window of opportunity to solve the greenhouse effect before it goes beyond human control. That sounds really bad, and according to The Guardian, the UK is now into its 8th year of permanent drought. And not only that, The Guardian says that by the end of this year, Britain will have a Siberian climate. Saturday, February 21st, 2004. Now the Pentagon tells Bush climate change will destroy us. Britain will be Siberian in less than 20 years. Britain is plunged into a Siberian climate by 2020. Nuclear conflict, mega droughts, famine, and widespread rioting will erupt across the world. Well, they got the rioting part correct, and with the La Nina in the Pacific, it could get pretty cold in Britain this winter. And besides the Siberian climate, the National Trust warns that Britain's going to become a Mediterranean climate with orange trees and bougainvillea. Britain needs immediate action to prevent this catastrophe from happening. The BBC also says that the UK faces 50,000 cases a day of coronavirus by mid-October without action. Let's take a look at that. This is the latest coronavirus data from the UK. The blue line shows the number of daily cases. They're getting about 3,000 new cases a day right now, and if they stay on the current trajectory, they'll be up over about 5,000 cases by mid-October. The BBC said 50,000 cases a day, but the actual number is about 5,000, so the BBC missed by a factor of 10, which makes their COVID reporting a little bit more accurate than their climate reporting. But let's look at the death curve now in red. It's been declining since the middle of April, and now they're having very few deaths in the United Kingdom. So whatever this spike in cases is, it's not a deadly virus. In fact, the UK government shows that deaths involving COVID-19, shown in red, have been lower than influenza and pneumonia deaths since June. The influenza and pneumonia deaths are shown with the blue line. So the BBC got their number off by a factor of 10 and says the government needs to take action against something called cases. Based on the BBC, it would appear that the state of science in the UK is pretty hopeless, but that's actually not the case. There's lots of people speaking out.
Let's just talk about some really basic stuff here. We saw yesterday 3,991 positive cases for coronavirus. It's up 50% in a week. You can understand why huge numbers of people are incredibly worried that we're seeing that uptick in cases. Should we be worried?
Well, thanks for having me back, Julia. Of course, I definitely don't want to dismiss the possibility that these numbers are real and that people will get ill and potentially go to hospital or even die. But the evidence to date, I think, suggests that all or a substantial part of these positives could be due to what's called false positive tests. Now, government knows that the PCR test is very sensitive, and all tests have a propensity to throw up a particular false positive rate. What's really frustrating, Julie, and your listeners should know this, the government either doesn't know what the false positive rate is, or if it does, it's not declaring it and continuing with the assumption that it's zero, and it's definitely not zero. And Carl Hennigan did a calculation, and he showed that if the false positive rate is as little as 0.1%, then more than half the positive tests are in fact false or fake. And I think the false positive rate is probably much higher, possibly 1%. And if that's true, most or all of the positives are actually false, and they're not infected, infectious, or ill.
So the real problem isn't a lack of good science, the problem is a lack of good journalism. It's all propaganda from the BBC. And unfortunately, the sorry state of BBC propaganda represents the sorry state of the UK government. It's almost impossible to get any accurate information from the mainstream media, so the world depends on independent journalists like Toto. You can visit him and Kyrie on the web at realclimatescience.com.